aren't here anymore.
Route 66 was the main artery into Los Angeles, but wasn't the only way to get here. The inventive ones, the adventurous ones, the wealthy ones flew into Los Angeles, and they landed right here at our municipal airport. No, this wasn't LAX, that was just bean fields. Wasn't Burbank either. This was Grand Central Air Terminal in Glendale, and that's the control tower.
Flying from New York and the east, arriving 4:20 on time.
Remember when TWA meant Transcontinental and Western Airlines? Remember when there was a Western Airlines? Remember when flying was not only dangerous, it was a dressy occasion? Well then, you might remember Grand Central Air Terminal.
It was the only airport that amounted to a hill of beans in those days. And that's the way to put it, because everybody that flew out of Glendale.
Los Angeles didn't invent the airplane, we just invented how to fly it and how to use it. To drop a few names, Jack Northrop, Glenn Martin, and Donald Douglas were building planes here, and they attracted such luminaries as Charles Lindbergh, Amelia Earhart, and Howard Hughes to fly them. Before long, our skies were buzzing with primitive aircraft.
I remember to my dying day the strong winds that used to prevail in the fall months and the winter months from the northwest. And again, you'd have these little putt-putts up there and straining to get any, their airspeed would be 75, 80 miles per hour. Their ground speed would be 1 and 2 miles per hour. They're almost like a satellite in space. And you wonder, God, I wonder how that guy is going to change directions without blowing back into Pomona, you know?
I see a new horizon. My life has only begun. Beyond the blue horizon lies a setting sun.
Then the movie business discovered the flying business, and that was a marriage made in the clouds. Stars like Edgar Bergen, Jane Russell, and Will Rogers could afford those expensive toys, and when the money rolled in, Grand Central itself became the movie star. Bright Eyes and Sky Giants were just two of the movies shot at the Grand Central Airport, glamorizing the romantic airplane pilot with the leather helmet, the goggles, and that white scarf trailing in the wind. And then there were those weekend air shows that took flying to new heights.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
I attended an air show in 1923 there as a 5-year-old boy. And one of the old Curtiss airplanes called a Jenny, flown by somebody named Gilhausen, I believe it was, crashed right in the middle of the airport and just missed all the pedestrians and spectators that were watching. And I remember the pilot climbed out with a piece of the airplane held in his hand as a souvenir and walked off, blood streaming down his face with his helmet and goggles, but smiling, and he was happy because he was still alive.
But of all the things that Grand Central was, it was also noisy. And that ailment eventually proved fatal. The last plane droned away in 1959. The whole area gave way to a high-tech industrial park, which it is today. But the old terminal and tower remain, most of the beautiful tiles painted over. But on a clear day, you can still hear some of those hangar jockeys coming in for a landing. One of the reasons Los Angeles has always been a popular destination is that we've always been surrounded by resorts. And this used to be one of them. This is a beautiful green valley, appropriately called Val Verde. We're actually a few miles from Magic Mountain. But you would assume that anybody could go to any of those resorts. as long as they could afford it. But that's not exactly the way it was. For instance, before World War II, there was a prosperous Japanese fishing village on Terminal Island. And just across the channel, there was an equally prosperous resort called White's Point. It was a Japanese resort for the fishermen, for nearby farmers, and for the businessmen of Little Tokyo.
White's Point Hot Springs bloomed out to be a beautiful resort, and it had a restaurant and hotel and a swimming pool and a rowboating, and the people that used to come all the way from Imperial Valley, way up north, or Fresno or whatever, and they felt right at home because it was a place called their own.
Of course, those bombs that fell on Pearl Harbor also demolished White's Point. In fact, most of the local residents were sent off to prison camps. But those same bombs gave us another wave of refugees, Jewish refugees. And they founded their own resorts, too.
Well, as a kid, I remember we went to a resort called the Paradise, which may have been an overstatement, but it was in Ontario. And on Euclid Street was this kind of old hotel with a pool and a dining room, and they played lawn, it was lawn bowling and whatever, and we went there every summer.
So if these resorts were exclusive, you see, it wasn't exactly by choice. But oddly, one of the largest resorts and one of the most successful and one of the least known was the one that was right here in Val Verde. They had a rural country club surrounded by country homes that offered fresh air, fresh food, and most important, a fresh sense of freedom. To the black community of Los Angeles, Val Verde was more than just a resort. It was an escape.
This represented a place where we felt free, a place where we felt relaxed, but most of all, where my father and his friends and his relatives could come. And I guess there was a sense of ownership, a sense of this is ours.
We had to drive miles and miles and miles to get there. But we were so happy to have a place to go where we could be outside.
When you came into the valley, it was sort of an exhilarating feeling. You felt for a while that you were on par with the rest of America. It was, without question, the Black Palm Springs.
It was a place of camaraderie and good fellowship and good food and good times.
When it was first developed in the 1920s, Val Verde was just a brown, barren hunk of land. But over the years, a nice green park was added, then a clubhouse, and finally a swimming pool.
There weren't many blacks in Los Angeles then, and everybody knew everybody almost, And the people would cook and bring their specialties, the good old picnic food like stuffed eggs and fried chicken and potato salad and greens. And I remember the peach cobblers especially. Oh, they were so good.
And for the beautiful people of Val Verde, a beauty contest.
It was one of my first beauty contests, and I won. I was so shocked because there were girls who were much more beautiful than I was. And Eartha Kitt was one of the judges. Years later, I ran into a gentleman who was a judge, and he told me that when she heard me singing April in Paris in French, she says, "There's our winner." So I have to thank her for that.
As times began to change, Val Verde went from resort to residential. Though nicely integrated now, it's certainly not as rustic or charming as it used to be. Oh, sure, the old hotel is still there, a victim of the Northridge earthquake. So is the country store on Main Street, but something is missing. As one resident told me, it's the only black community which has turned white. So, at least, it has made history. Well, now it's on to a resort for everybody, where the only thing that's lily white is the way we got there. The big white steamer.
Miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is waiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance, 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 romance.
All the movie stars went there for their honeymoons, and people went there for their weekends, and it was full of people having wonderful illicit romances, and respectable people having wonderful times with their families, and so on and so on.
26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is waiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance, 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 romance.
It was a resort